Did the Toronto real estate market bottom again? Well, I'm not too sure about that, but what I am sure of is that it's market update time. My name's Tom Storey. I appreciate you being back here on the channel. If you watch this video and learn anything new, all I ask is you leave us a like and get subscribed to join our community. You can also book a call with me or my team in the first link in the description. I had a few people message me when the stats came out from the Toronto Real Estate Board, and one of the headlines that I saw was that the party is back on for the Toronto real estate market. And not that I'm not an absolutely optimistic person in most things in life, but the party's on depending on what you're trying to do and if you're a buyer or a seller, right? So if we really break this down, who's the party on for? Well, I can tell you, if you're selling a semi-detached property in the city of Toronto in a great area, the party is on for you. There's a lineup out that door. We offered on a property last night for a client in Leslieville. There was 14 offers on it, but there's also 1 month of inventory in that area. So of course that's going to happen. If you have a detached house, yeah, there's a party. It's going on, but it's not too crowded. People are having a good time. Homes are selling. It looks like prices are going up. If you've got a condo for sale, I would call it maybe more of a small gathering. The good ones are being scooped up, but not everything's there. Still a very balanced out market. And then in the new construction space and the assignment side of the market, it's kind of like you're looking at your watch and you're like, oh my God, is no one going to show up to this party? And a few people stroll in and it's okay, but you wish more people would have been there. Now, this is all from a seller's perspective so far of what I've talked about in this video. But what I recognize too is there's a good chunk of you watching this that are on the other side of the transaction. I'm going to do my best in today's video to break down what the numbers are actually telling us and how it could impact the decisions that you are making in today's market. The question that's coming up a lot is, has the market bottomed? Okay, has the market bottomed out and is it going to go up from here? Which is kind of wild to think about, considering that we haven't even seen any rate cuts happen yet. And this is one of my favorite new charts. Shout out to my brokerage, Royal LePage Signature. They put this together, and I think it's such a good illustration of exactly what the market has done. This goes back to 2019. It just basically shows, based on where the overnight rate was, what prices have done. And this circle right here, as we all know, that was the peak of the market. And then rates started going up in March 22 and then up and up and up and up. And they've now been at 5% since July of 2023. And when you're a buyer trying to figure out when you should enter the market, even though, I'll say this forever, like you can't time it correctly. If you can, congrats. It's probably a little bit of luck. But you look at this chart and go like, okay, yes, the market bottomed off from the peak and then it looked like it picked up again a little bit, but then it bottomed for sure here, right? And this was January 2023. So we knew for certain for a long time that looked like the bottom. We had a very strong start to last year. Then we dipped off again based on the 2 rate hikes in the summer. And then it kind of jumped up a little bit again at the end of the year, but then it looked like we bottomed off again. But the 2 quote unquote bottoms of the market were January. So like, can you call January a bottom of the market? It's January. Things aren't supposed to happen. There's supposed to be less transactions and sale prices usually aren't that high. And January numbers for a lot of people were disappointing if you owned real estate, because it looked like we dropped off from at the end of last year, because we did. It was very clear in sale price and average price and median price. We had a huge jump up in February. And this is where this optimism is coming back. And you're going to see it on social media where, hey, maybe things are getting a little bit better. So even though I'm not a big fan of year over year numbers, I want to acknowledge them to show you what the numbers are showing us from February to February. So in terms of sales volume, 5,600 properties sold in the Greater Toronto area. Still not a lot, but it was 17% higher than last year. New listings, we had over 11,000, which was actually up 33%. So even though the sales were up 17%, the total inventory level and the absorption rate of the properties for sale was actually lower this year than it was last year. Active listings were 15% more, which makes sense. And your average price across the board year over year was up 1.1%. But of this information, here's what I think is the most important to you as a potential consumer. The key data to me was that, yeah, sales were up 17% year over year. And that's going to be a headline you might see in the news. Do I think this really matters? Maybe in terms of confidence in the market, but doesn't necessarily impact what prices are going to do. Then if you look at month over month and just go January to February, prices across the board were up 7.9%. So that's interesting. So that doesn't happen if there's not some level of optimism in the market. Now, most of that growth, as I'll show you in more detail further in this video, is happening in the freehold sector of the market. But new listings were also up 33%. But let's talk about this for a second. Isn't this supposed to be what happens in a regular real estate market? The year starts slow. It picks up a little bit in February. Then things really start to kick off in March, April, May, June, and then they calm down a little bit in July and August, and then the fall market picks up again. Like, this is normal. Like, if we go back to 2019, 2018, years that didn't have pandemics or crazy rate hikes or rate decreases or all the things going on, like, this is pretty normal. So I'm not going to get too ahead of myself that this means that prices are going to start roaring back. I still think across the board, if you go back to my predictions video from last year, from January till the end of this year, I think we'll see 5 to 6% price growth. Most of it's going to happen in the freehold sector. Condos are going to be relatively flat, maybe a little bit of bump at some point of the year. But overall, so far this year isn't really changing my opinion on the market. Let's show you what the numbers are actually telling us. Now, I wanted to give you the last 4 months of data because year over year means nothing to me. So let's start first with semi-detached properties. Now, average price is what makes the headlines. I look at median price as well. So if you look at November, average price was actually pretty good. November was a surprisingly pretty strong month. Dipped off again in December, which again is normal. We jumped up slightly in January, but there was a massive jump between January and February. So if you own a semi-detached house in the city of Toronto, now these are 416 numbers we're looking at right here, right? Just the city of Toronto, both in average price and median price, it jumped up across the board. I would say this is the segment of the market that is the most heated right now, that you're seeing the offer scenarios where you're getting more than 10 offers on one property. And then when we look at detached, looking at December to January, we had a big drop off. And some of it may have been luxury buyers trying to sneak in sales at the end of the year over $3 million not to pay that tax. But I don't really know exactly what percentage of the market that was. But February, we saw a big jump up. And again, it wasn't just average price, it was median price as well. And there was more sales. And I fully recognize, like, if you look at these sale prices, $1.657 million, and we go back to semi-detached for a second, $1.3 million. You're like, who can afford this, right? Who's buying this? Why are there so much demand in this segment of the market that is so expensive? And from what I can tell you from doing this on the ground level, helping people try to get into this segment of the market, is that most of them have owned real estate for a long period of time, usually anywhere between 5 to 7 years. It's the people with large equity, potentially dual income, that's now trading up to the next property. So I fully recognize that these numbers are not what first-time home buyers are buying, right? First-time home buyers are buying the condos and then hoping that that gets them on the ladder, that eventually that they can move up. So this is where all the growth has happened so far in the market. Now we have to talk about condos. Condos represent almost 60% of all the sales that are going to happen in the city of Toronto this year. And condos had a huge decline last year. From about July last year until December, they went down every single month. Then the last video I put out, I showed you that, hey, in January, condos stopped going down. They went up like $150, right? But in median price, they still did go down a little bit. If you look at the February numbers, condos jumped up to $726,000, but it wasn't just average price, it was median price as well. So you're starting to see glimmers of hope that the condo market is getting a little bit stronger out there right now, even with all the tenanted properties for sale, all the vacant properties for sale, which represents 44% of all active listings right now. If those, for whatever reason, aren't on the market and more owner-occupied properties come to the market, condo market will pick up a bit, but it's still very much in balanced market territory right now. It depends on what it is, what area it is, if it's going to sell. But we put out quite a few condo listings so far this year, and some of them have sold faster than I expected, but at prices that made sense, prices that we thought we were going to get. I just thought it was going to take a little bit longer to get that number. So there you go. That's what the numbers are saying from the real estate board, combined with kind of what I'm seeing on the ground level here. How this is going to impact the decision that you are going to make is going to depend on what type of property you're trying to buy, what type of property you're going to sell, but make sure you make it a data-driven decision. Try not to let emotions get involved. There's going to be a little bit of deja vu going on, especially if you're trying to buy a semi-detached property. You're like, what the hell? This house has 10 offers. This house has 10 offers. Well, yeah, it's because you're trying to buy in an area with extremely low inventory and high demand. But I'm telling you, if you look back to when people were buying based on fear in 2022, in 2021, those are some of the decisions that people regret. Don't buy on fear. Buy on logic. Be strategic. Know what you're trying to do. I still don't think this is going to be a crazy growth year of real estate in Toronto. I don't even know if this is going to sustain for the entire year. It might just be a blip here and then cool off again. We're not really sure. We have to play it out. So with the market picking up and the spring market not even here yet, and you're probably going to see price increases for the next 2 or 3 months in a row because that happens in a normal real estate market here in the city of Toronto, that could now have an impact, not just Toronto, but the entire country on when Bank of Canada does decide that they want to cut. Because if the market picks up too much, they might say, whoa, 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 not the right time right now. So we'll have to see what they do. Thanks for watching this video. My name's Tom Storey. And remember, home is where your story begins.